Jeff Smith here at the Enfield Stadium. He is one of the directors here at Enfield. How long have you been on the board, Enfield?
I've been on the board here for 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And how did you get involved here?
Well, it's quite interesting that one of the directors who was around at that time had been a long-term friend of mine, and he sort of got me involved when they moved into the new stadium here, because I've got a kind of business and management background, and they really went at that point from running a few football teams to running a business. So we all try to help. I take no part of the acclaim for this wonderful stadium that we've got, which so many people put a lot of hard work in to actually get us here, and actually stop the ground sharing that we were doing with another local side in Brimsdown at the time. But from that point on, it was fairly evident, particularly the way we've developed here as a club, that we're actually quite a large organisation, and we've got to run it on managerial lines. It's not just the first team. We've got over 20 teams, you probably know this, but through all the different age groups, we've got a ladies section, a youth section, and we've also got a disability squad as well. We are very much a community club, and as I say, we've been in this stadium for nearly 6 years now, and we're very proud of it and what we've achieved in that time.
And obviously you're as well a lifelong Spurs fan. How long have you been following Spurs for?
Well, I can remember the double winning side of 1961, and I was a schoolboy at Tottenham Grammar at the time. The days of Blanchflower and Mackay and Cliff Jones and everybody else. I've been a season ticket holder, I think, since the early 80s. And now my son is a regular there, and my grandson is a regular there. There were a few seasons when I didn't go on such a regular basis, but certainly in the last 20 years, I've been going up there. What I now have to do is to juggle my time. And
say, which one do you choose?
Exactly, between here and Tottenham. And because of a lot of the Tottenham games are televised, it's actually not worked out too badly in recent seasons, although I have noticed that in the forthcoming season, the two home games that Tottenham have got, which haven't been selected for TV, clash with the two home games here. So I'm going to have to toss a coin and decide where I go. But I'm very excited about the new stadium at Spurs. Obviously, I went to the games at the end of last season, and I'm trying to really kind of balance it and still keep in with my wife and the rest of the family, really, so they see a little bit of.
Taking any inspiration from the new stadium for this stadium, maybe?
Well, I think it's on a completely different scale, of course. But I mean, this was an old athletic. We've always had the athletics track here, but the stand itself and where the cafe is, this was a stadium that was really sort of falling into disrepute, basically, owned by the local authority. We as the football club have got a lease which has still got over 90 years to go. So we have the lease. The local authority is still the owners of the building, and I think if we hadn't have moved in here, I mean, this could have been sort of demolished because it really wasn't being used very much. And if you actually look at its location and the perspective of where it is in relation to Enfield playing fields, there, the 3G pitch, which is at the far end, which has been there for just over a year. The rugby club next door to us, it's ideally situated in relation to being a sort of a hub of community sports for Enfield. And one of the ethics of this club is it is a community club, and it's very much sort of favouring and promoting the ownership of the club by the members, by the supporters of the club, and outreaching into the community, particularly in terms of younger people. We've got quite a lot of work going on with the local authority, which I'm one of the people involved in that, which is about actually kind of looking at their priorities in terms of things like childhood obesity, getting children off the street, that kind of stuff, which we can play a very major part of that in relation to what we're trying to do here. It's a bit of a struggle financially, I'll be quite honest. It's a bit of a hand-to-mouth existence because we haven't got a lot of commercial money going in, and we rely on sponsors. And we rely obviously on the people that come through the gate, our very loyal supporters. But we have to be very, very careful about our budget, and it's as I say, it is a really quite a tough time.
Talking about budgets, obviously, let's talk a bit about Spurs now. There's 8 days to go for the transfer window. Yeah. We've broken our transfer record this summer. However, he is the only with Ndombele, but he is the only player we've signed. Do you feel like Spurs need more numbers going into the season, or are you happy with how the squad's shaping up from a Spurs point of view?
Well, I think everybody, all the supporters, I think, would like to see another one or two come in. I really do. Sort of top class players. I mean, I know we've been linked with, sort of a few, but. I mean, what is encouraging is the number of youngsters that are coming through. I mean, we've had the Harry Winks and the Harry Kanes and all the rest of it, but just on the recent tour, Oliver Skipp, Parrott, Troy Parrott, Giorgio. I mean, several of the youngsters I hadn't really heard of before. Now, if they're coming through, we are then building the depth in the squad that I think we need. And I think all Spurs supporters have always enjoyed seeing a local youngster coming through, always given them a lot of support. But of course, you've got to get the balance between that and the senior experienced players. And if we're going to maintain the level that we're at the moment, Champions League final last year, then I think we have got to bring in a couple of, sort of very, very senior, sort of almost world-class players. If not in this transfer window, certainly within the next year or so.
Is there a kind of transfer committee here at Anfield like we have at Spurs?
We don't have transfers.
No transfers in the conference now works?
Not really. Most players who play for us are on what they call a sort of a pay-as-they-play basis. We have a couple of players who are on contract, and if they wanted to move to another club, then that would be the subject of some kind of transfer arrangement. At this level, you very rarely get very much money changing hands in that sort of situation. But most players, and this is always a difficult time for non-league teams at this time of the season, because players are sort of looking at other clubs, and we've lost a few and we've gained a few, and that happens virtually sort of every summer.
Can't convince any of the Spurs youngsters here to maybe for a loan deal.
Well, that would be nice. I mean, we,
put a good word in, maybe.
Could you please? I mean, one of the advantages of tonight is that we are so close to the Spurs training ground, obviously, as you know, at Hotspur Way, and to that extent, we have got some tentative informal links with Tottenham. And in fact, I pay tribute to a couple of their groundsmen who a few weeks ago actually came over here because we were having trouble with the pitch. There'd been some, work done to it, a few weeks back at the end of the season. And we needed some really good professional advice. And they came over here one morning, they spoke to the chap who does our ground and pitch, and then they provided some bags of fertiliser and various other things like that. But it's that kind of collaborative approach, I think, between a senior club like Tottenham and ourselves that is of sort of mutual benefit.
They're very helpful, they're helpful Spurs.
Yeah, and we, as I say, I think in terms of sort of that kind of professional advice that we're able to get from them when it's necessary is great. Whether we can have any sort of better links at a footballing level, I think remains to be seen, and probably very much up to Tottenham. But we're very grateful they've come along to play us this evening with their academy side.
And it's the second year in a row, isn't it?
It's the second year in a row they've done that, and in fact, when we first moved into the stadium, I don't know whether you know that they actually did send us sort of an under-23 side as the inaugural match for opening the stadium. So we've had those good relationships. We hope to develop them, but we do know that Tottenham Hotspur as a football club have had quite a lot of other things to think about over the last year or so, to say the least. So we totally understand the situation, but it would be nice to actually make those links even closer than they are now.
All right, Jeff, best of luck for the season, best of luck today as well. Thank you for coming on.
Not at all.